In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the bellow boot on the inner tie rod on this Mazda 6. After this procedure, you will need an alignment. Let's install this TRQ bellows boot. Use a 21mm socket and remove all 5 of your lug nuts, and then remove the wheel. Use a 21mm wrench to break the jam nut free from the outer tie rod so we can separate the two. There we go. Let's remove the cotter pin off of the outer tie rod. You'll have to pry this out. Inspect it. If it's in good condition, you can reuse these. If it is not, then use a new one. Use a 17mm socket and break the nut free. I'm going to put the nut on a few threads just so it can hold the tie rod. Tap the knuckle on the side with a hammer, and that should separate the tie rod stud from the knuckle. There we go. The mounting nut prevented the tie rod from falling all the way down. Remove the nut and remove the tie rod. Now count the threads that it takes to remove the outer tie rod from the inner. When we put it all back together, we have to get the same amount of threads on here. That does not get you a perfect alignment. You still have to go get an alignment, but this will get you close. There it is, 20 threads for me, or 20 turns, but that does not mean it's the same for you, so remember your number. I'm going to use a 21mm socket on this, see if I can break it free with my impact. If not, I'm going to have to hold it here with a wrench or a pair of locking pliers. Going to have to hold it. There it is. Remove your pliers. With a pair of pliers, remove this clamp that holds the outer part of the boot. With a pry bar, go up against the inner clamp and then tap the pry bar with a hammer. We're basically looking to just break that clamp free, and these are single-use clamps, so you cannot reuse these. The clamp did not completely fall apart, but it is loose, so at this point I can pull the boot off. We'll remove the clamp once the boot is off. A lot of times it gets stuck on the inner tie rod, so just pull on it. Oh, there's the clamp, there's the boot. Add this grease onto the ball and socket joint. I'm going to work it around, that way the tie rod can be lubricated properly. Add some more on the bottom. This should keep it nice and lubricated for a long time. There we go. Work that grease in so it doesn't start out dry. And then, if you have any extra, what I like to do is just put it on the area here where the boot sits, so that as you slide it on, not only will it be easier to slide on and lock in, however, when the alignment gets done and the tie rod gets turned, the boot will not get stuck on the metal, which happens often. It'll be a lot easier to align the vehicle. I'm going to use a wire tie and put it on the inner part of the boot just because it's easier to put it on now, and then tighten it once the boot is on there. Speaking of, let's slide the boot over the inner tie rod. Make sure it seats on the power steering rack. If you have a lot of debris there, by the way, you're going to want to clean it so the boot can seal up. The boot should slide over the rack, and you'll feel it kind of lock in. If you put your hand back there, it should be flush with the end or the cutout where it's supposed to sit. I can feel that it is completely seated in there. On the end here, I'm going to make sure it slips over and locks into its groove, which is right here. Let's tighten up the wire tie. The easiest way to do that is with some needle nose pliers if you have some. Grip it and twist it. Once you snug it up, cut off the excess. There we go. Let's put on the outer clamp. If you think that your original spring clamp has lost its tension, or if it's rusty, do not reuse it. Use another wire tie on here or source a new one. Mine is in good condition, so I'm okay to reuse it. Make sure it's seated well. I prefer to use anti-seize on the threads of the inner tie rod so that as the outer tie rod goes on, in the future it will not seize up. You can use a little bit of grease if you don't have anti-seize. Install the jam nut. I'm going to thread it on most of the way. This will also help the anti-seize get into the threads. And then take the outer tie rod and put it on the same amount of turns that it took to take it off. That's it right there. I'm going to bring the jam nut a little bit closer. Can't lock it in until the outer tie rod's in the knuckle, so let's do that next. Bring the outer tie rod into the knuckle. Push it through. Have the mounting nut ready and thread it on. Snug it up. 43 foot-pounds is the torque for this mounting nut. That's it right there. Let's snug up the jam nut, bring it up against the outer tie rod, and then use a 22mm wrench on this new one to snug it up. When you tighten this, don't worry about making it extremely tight. Just give it about 1/8 of a turn after it bottoms out, and let's put the wheel on. Install all 5 of your lug nuts. Bottom them out in a cross pattern, but also in a cross pattern, you want to torque these to 80 foot-pounds. Once again, 80 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them all. There you have it. Now go ahead and get yourself in alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.